Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is Lights, Cameras, Action for Change. I'm Suzette Speaks, your hostess with the mostest, and it is an honor to be your MC for this first of its kind virtual event. I'm really grateful that our visionary invited me to come aboard. We have an amazing group of panelists for you, and you will be able to interact directly. Even though this is virtual, we want to get you hyped and involved. So go ahead and drop a message in the chat. Go ahead and look at the bottom of your Zoom. Let us know where you're watching from. There are folks joining us from all around. Of course, South Florida's in the building. I'm in Miami. Shout out to everybody watching from Florida. But of course, everywhere around the world, this message needs to be spread. And we're going to get into why we are providing the resources we have for you today. Now, of course, as you're doing that, I see you, everybody, Miami in the building. I see you, Benjamin. Okay, I see you come through. And you can also continue to share the link. More folks can jump in all throughout today's conference. We have a wonderful lineup for you. We have legal resources, we have entertainers, and most importantly, we have some very, very good information and personal stories and narratives that will help you navigate this world of entertainment. I myself, being a TV host, attorney, award-winning speaker, there are a lot of pitfalls to this industry. So we are going to hopefully help you to avoid them. So go ahead again. I see everybody in the chat. Let me open it up and see who's here. And again, this is being recorded, so make sure as we have our discussions today, you are leaving your questions and your comments in the chat box for us to read them. So without further ado, again, we know this industry is all about the glitz and the glamour, but there is also a dark side to entertainment. So we're going to hopefully enlighten you and allow you to avoid, again, the areas in which people can sometimes exploit us, take advantage of us. And without further ado, I want to introduce the visionary and the creator of today's virtual event. Before we get into these powerhouse discussions, I'd like to also highlight our sponsors. So we couldn't do this without sponsorship. Let me do business before we get into it. But I want to especially thank our partners. Shout out to Content Creator Experience, round of applause, as well as Black Moms Miami's in the building, round of applause. And we can hear you guys, don't worry. And CoSpace Miami. All right, we thank you so much. For those of you who are watching again in Florida and around the world, drop us a comment in the chat and be sure to follow and tag our creator and visionary. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome the woman creator behind this amazing event. Please put your hands together, give us some virtual snaps, something, and welcome none other than Sabine Taime.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up on this beautiful Sunday to just be here with us to talk and learn all about abuse in entertainment. It is something that is dear to my heart because well, we're going to get a little bit into why it is so, but I know that with recent stories that have been out, abuse in entertainment is a real thing, and it's not just something that's happening to celebrities, it's happening to everyday people. And so I thought, let's get, some professionals and different people in the field to share their experiences and give you the knowledge that you need as you venture through your journey in entertainment. And so thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy this event.
Awesome. Thank you, Sabine. And we appreciate you putting in the work, guys. This is not easy to put something like this together. We appreciate her and the entire team for bringing this event to you so we can get the information we need to navigate this space. So we're going to kick off before we get into the deep discussions, as I was saying before, with a little bit of entertainment. Our first up guest is a poet. And I want to welcome Salam the Poet. Salam the Poet is a dynamic spoken word artist out of Chi-Town. Let's go, Chicago. Known for captivating audiences with his powerful performances, as well as in Miami. He's performed here at the Lyric Theater in historic Overtown, as well as the Broward Center for the Performing Arts. With over a decade of writing and nearly as many years of platforms such as the Bantu Fest, Columbia College of Chicago, Chicago's manifest, as well as more intimate settings like high school, classrooms, and family gatherings. Salam's dedication to spreading dope energy through his art has led to the creation of Spit Yo Peace. I love that name. An open mic series and his involvement with the Goat Pen Society, an artistic collective focused on fostering community and safe spaces through the arts, is unmatched. Without further ado, let's welcome our first guest to Lights, Camera, Actions for Change, Salam the Poet.
How's it going? How's it going?
Fantastic. Welcome, brother.
All right. Well, can you all see me? Because somebody just told me to turn my camera on.
Go ahead and do that. Now we can.
There we go. All right, cool. How y'all doing?
Fantastic. The floor is yours.
And I'm just hop right into it. Well, I'm an intro first, like the bio spoken of. I'm the poet laureate for the Historic Theater in Overtown. I've been in South Florida about 3 years. So shout out to Sabine for bringing me on to talk about this. This is actually a beautiful event and concept. So I'm excited to see what everybody else has. Short and sweet. The news yelling pandemic, streets call it a bandemic. They say scrape up or sit out, and that's their only thought. And breathing never this deadly. So wheeze thoughts. COVID, just like COINTEL, these pros been planning it. Tell the hotel of horror set the freezers to defrost. Kanika Jenkins still laying in it. Files packing cold cases of mothers with sleepless nights. We know sirens sing songs of death that come with spinning lights. So one see red, one see white, and word to Tamir Rice, they blew beef out of proportion before thinking twice. They don't care what you say. They won't meet you halfway. Their mind is far from a silver lining. They took away a shine that they never gave. Just ask Freddie Gray and lend me an ear. You hear that? It's the sound of crickets from those labeled criminals with crooked backs from badges explaining how it wasn't out of hate. Oh, please, Mr. Man, your seasons come with no reason. We've seen your taste, and quite frankly, I'm saying it's rather bland. Your birds of prey, your wingspan worsens with each inch laid. Won't even begin to dive into how you wreck the airways. Hardly does your media ever address the more relevant Aubrey. Sorry, not sorry. That's really how we feel. Philando can still be eating ice cream with his daughters instead of being a martyr that inspired this piece. It's ridiculous. We come with pics and clips, but somehow you find a way to tell us that none of this exists. Then tell me this. How do you miss millions of Black children every year? Tell me why gym mat spools contain dead bodies with organs pulled. Why does everybody affiliated with Epstein got stranger things happening? You on a road to success, yet those trailers looking mighty full. It makes me wonder who's backing your trafficking. That's the piece, y'all.
Ooh, snaps in the chat, claps in the chat. Let's go. Are you going to do another piece, or is that your only piece today? We got time, brother. You got one more? You got one?
I mean, for the event in the entertainment industry, I don't know.
That was so deep. Claps in the chat, snaps in the chat. I love it.
I have actually a piece just about like what it means, like dedicated to Colin Kaepernick, but that's.
Go ahead with it. We'd love to hear it. Go ahead.
Censorship?
Bruh, this is entertainment, bro. From the let's
cool.
go.
Got you. I'm scrolling through Facebook trying to catch the pace, and all I see is 9 a.m. slow shit. These boring posts causing me to space. I'm thinking about how maybe I should have had breakfast before I left my place, or how this week should fly by with only 4 days, but one more swipe of the thumb, and I'm like, wait. I see people burning sneakers, people acting irate. I see a Nike poster, ain't no more Serena, not Kaepernick the face. To be quite honest, I love that, but then I heard the colonizers acting like they upset. I say, good. You got that much animosity, bring it. No more subliminals, I'm talking full on, and on my soul, we'll turn this shit to Babylon. We'll plague your space and be locusts to your livestock. Famine to your family until your rivers run red with reparations. Fuck this nation, I'll spit on your flag if shunning me for exercising my First Amendment ain't validation that you racist. You assassinated character over charisma, that you turn a blind eye to dirt in high places. Like, cops be soul snatchers, right? Yet they still beating the cases. Clearly it's not about patriotism. The soldiers stood behind him and clearly you dismissed them. So tell me, what's the real issue? You mad your Jim Crow don't flow? Petrified by ideas of our Black fists on covers of your New York Times, Black Beatles and Migos on covers of your Rolling Stone? Let's be real. Cats on Forbes list with skin like this ain't faulty. Remember, we lessen the scandals in the Oval Office. So some kids' scholars shouldn't come as a shock to you. You calling us poor like our dollars ain't the ones that got you through. Clearly, I guess you got life confused. I guess you thought you was dealing with gorillas till we copped suits and lost with views and we pulled up in the coop and bought you a zoo. They made the knowledge repeat when we reach the youth. Because we're not lemmings no more. We like wolves in the storm. So fighting for what we know is in our blood. Fact check. We taught the Spartans how to go to war. So anytime you play your anthem, you can guarantee that you'll awaken the Panthers. And if you ever try to duplicate Colin, we'll make sure he's honored amongst the purple-hearted and the fallen. So if anybody that looks like me is going through it, anytime you feel the need to resist, we never ask permission. We just do it. And that's the piece.
I love it. Okay. It's celebration of Black History Month. I feel, hey, the Wakandans in the building. Let's go. That was so beautiful. Salem the poet, y'all. Show your love in the chat. Hit an emoji button. If you don't know how to use emojis, give me a thumbs up. Do something. That was from the heart. We thank you so much for sharing your talent with us today, sir. Bless you. Thank you so much. And continue
Thank y'all
success.
for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. We got the talent in the building. Now we're going to move into our first panel discussion session of this event. I'm so grateful again that we are going to tackle this very difficult topic, which is again exploitation and even sexual abuse and exploitation. So viewer discretion is advised, but we're going to go deep. Again, this is a safe space where we can be very transparent, and our guests plan to do so. And it is my honor right now to introduce to you our panelists, and they are Nikisha Niji. She told me this 5 times. I hope I got the last name right. Tony Talerme and Maxine Reyes. I'm going to do a quick bio on each of them and then ask them to come up. Welcome again, guys. I'm grateful again in the chat. Thank you. I see you watching. And if you have feedback after the panel discussion, you will in fact be able to ask them questions directly. So you can either put them in the chat. I think that's the easiest way. But I want to welcome you again. Suzette Speaks here. And I'm grateful again that you're watching. And I hope this will provide good quality information for you to utilize either for yourself or for those that you love as we navigate the entertainment industry together. All right. So we want to welcome, first and foremost, let's do men first. Hey, how about that? Tony Delerme is a filmmaker and actor from Port-au-Prince, Haiti, in the building. After attending film school in South Florida, his knowledge and love for the camera led him to New York City as a specialist in the art of cinematography. He has collaborated with brand leaders across the country. His body of work encompasses not only narrative film, but commercials, music videos, and branded content. He has developed several feature films, how about that, that have received worldwide acclaim. As an actor, his work can be seen on the big screen on Amazon Prime Video. He has worked alongside Megan Good, Garcelle Bouveau, and Jimmy Jean-Louis. Tony now resides in Miami and is the co-founder of Crashing Waves Pictures. Welcome, Jimmy. Hi, how are you?
Thank you for having me. Who wrote that?
I had to cut it down real quick. This is amazing. The heavy hitters. I love it. Welcome,
Wow.
sir. Can't wait to hear your thoughts as we talk about, again, sexual abuse, human trafficking in the entertainment industry. Thank you very much. I'm going to go next to, actually, with the time frame we have, let me bring up the other 2 ladies, please, and let's have them introduce themselves because the bios are very long. And I want you guys to be able to highlight what you're working on now so people can follow you and support you. So let's get the other ladies up, please. Nikisha and Maxine, welcome.
Okay, wait a
Thank
minute.
you.
Thank you. Maxine, we'll start with you. Go ahead with
So
your introduction. Yes, please.
I'll tell you that I don't like to introduce myself because I don't like to talk too much about myself. So you're putting something difficult on me, and it's going to be very brief. Maxine Reyes, born in Jamaica. I'm a singer, singer-songwriter, and speaker. Served 22 years in the military, both Air Force and Army, and I'm a combat veteran.
Oh, wow. Wonderful. So can't wait to hear more from you. And Nikisha?
Hi, Hi, everyone. My name is Nikisha Niji. I definitely use just Niji, and you did an amazing job, Suzette. So thank you so much for that. It's like Maxine has said, the bio is extremely long. I've been in the industry professionally since 2010. Since then, I can't count on my fingers or toes how many stage plays, films, web series, YouTube, Netflix, not Netflix, not yet, Lord. We're claiming it though.
Speak it. Let's go.
Yeah, from Tubi, from Amazon Prime, you name it, I've done it, and I'm just excited to be here for sure.
Awesome. So we're just going to jump right into the questions, y'all. For Maxine, let's start with you, my dear. Can you share any insights into the challenges you have faced as a woman pursuing a career in entertainment, and especially in light of, and we hear a lot of times, abuse that may occur in the military, as you mentioned. Have you seen or experienced yourself any challenges as a woman in both industries?
Absolutely. I absolutely have. I joined the military straight out of high school, a few months after high school. So I was very young. Thankfully, I had a really good upbringing. My grandmother and family members have instilled self-confidence in me. And so when a lot of these things came at me, I stood my ground. As scared as I was, Lord knows I was scared, because in the military, you don't really say no to your leaders.
Yeah.
And so I was sexually harassed, not assaulted, praise God. But if I wasn't brave enough to say no and get the heck out of that room, a lot of things could have happened, because it's happened to my peers. So I left after 4 years. I left the military, left the Air Force, and I started working in the reserves in South Florida and Homestead Air Force Base. Worked at the local government, and I started recording music. I was introduced to a multimillionaire in the Miami Beach area, and my husband and I paid a lot of money to get my first CD done. And I was introduced to this man, gave him my CD, and he had me leading on. Sorry?
Somebody needs to mute. Somebody must have just joined. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and mute yourselves. Go ahead, Maxine.
You're welcome, and thank you. So I got my CD done, went to this multimillionaire because I was introduced to him. He wanted to invest into my music because he heard it. He said it was very good. We worked this up for 6 months, about to go to New York to do some video shoots and magazine shoots. And I went to pick up my tickets from his office, and he heard that I was out there. He asked me to come into his office. Went into his office, I got all excited, and he showed me the hotel that we were staying in Soho in New York. Of course, this is my first time going to do anything with the industry besides recording. So I was super excited. And then he said, here's the hotel, and this is going to be our room.
Ooh.
Take note, this man is in his 60s, I'm in my 20s, and I'm married. He's married with kids older than me. Okay. So apparently, and it didn't seem like this was the first time for his experience with, trying to lure a young girl into the same hotel room. So I told him I want to get my own hotel room. I'm not going to leave to go to New York if I know I'm going to stay with someone who's not my husband. And he said, you know what? You can take it or leave it. In this industry, you have to give to receive. And here I am, nervous as ever, looking at his desk with my CD sitting on his desk. And I was like, that's what I had to give him. I spent all this money. That's all I had. And that man said, you have a choice. So I walked away. I cried my eyes out, called my husband, who was ready to come and beat his behind. But I tell him, your wife had it, right? I took care of it by walking out and saying no, stood my grounds. And so that was it. I went back to the military, but this time I went to the Army. I didn't have any of those experiences in the Army, thank goodness. And so I stayed another 16 years. And, here I am now, pursuing music on my own, funding music on my own, not depending on anyone, because I don't want to be in that position that I was placed several years ago. Yeah.
Wow, Maxine, thank you for sharing that. I see the emojis. Show some love in the chat, y'all. This is, again, we're going to keep it real. We're going to keep it raw. Again, this is testimonial in a way as to what many people have experienced. You're definitely not alone, sis, when it comes to being young and vulnerable, and even grown woman and grown man vulnerable when you have a dream, and how sometimes people try to exploit that dream. So kudos to you for standing up. Again,
Thank you.
There could have been a different outcome. So this is the reality. So we have to be prepared. Sometimes you have to, I know you don't want to think, super, negatively or over cautiously, but we especially in entertainment, you can't be too sure. And bringing a buddy system, bringing someone with you, but even then, people will try you. So it's
Yeah.
really a great example that you just shared. Thank you for sharing that,
Mhm.
Tony.
And I just
Oh,
want
go
to
ahead.
add real quick. I just want to add to anyone who's watching or now or later, just be comfortable with saying no. Because
Yeah.
and be comfortable with being confident in yourself and with what you believe in, and you'll get through it. You'll get through it. I did.
Powerful message. Yeah, sometimes we
Mhm.
want the dream so badly,
Mhm.
but we have to remember to stay grounded and rely on our foundation, right? Our morals, our values, and making sure that we stand our ground when presented with such a horrific, dilemma. So you want to make sure you're prepared. Tony, I'm gonna switch over to you. I know you in your introduction, you do narrative filmmaking. And I'm very interested in the personal narrative and humanizing, especially Black people, Black and brown people. So I wanted to ask you, sir, you could unmute as a filmmaker, as an actor. Your work involves capturing and portraying various narratives. How do you see the power of storytelling through film influencing perceptions and awareness around sexual abuse, human trafficking, and the entertainment industry?
So I'll start off by what we see on TV is, I wouldn't say an agenda, it is what they think we want to see on television because it's a formula that works for them. And they're actually afraid to go against the narrative or against actually telling humanistic stories. And I'm a little frustrated with watching films at this point because everything's so overly sexualized that we lose the context of these are human stories that you're supposed to be explaining here in this film, and that's why we're not as engaged as viewers. So for me, I completely feel the importance of actually telling a real humanistic story. Let's not over sexualize everyone, and let's find an approach of storytelling to where you're actually speaking the voice of the character that you're writing for. It's very few, far and few in between that you're actually going to find that. I think we would just be setting ourselves up thinking that a lot of these creators are going to do that. And that's why I became a filmmaker myself, because I want to be able to tell humanistic stories, stories that are coming from a place of compassion. You have to be compassionate to the character that you're writing about. And and especially in a situation like that, and I think they're afraid to touch that subject because they might lose their jobs or
Mm.
might not be working in the industry anymore because somebody that funded their last film might be under the eyes of scrutiny right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think that also applies, if I may offer, when it comes to not only the sexualization of characters and specifically Black characters, but in terms of, stereotypes and caricatures of Black people and how we get pigeonholed and sometimes we feel like we can't speak up, Cat Williams, to the powers that be when it comes to, can this role be any deeper? Can this person or this character be any more complex?
Yeah.
And, do we have to be, the recipient of violence, sexual violence, and again, embody the stereotypes of what you believe Black people of color to be. So it's very interesting to see. I think there are more voices. What's the new movie called? American Narrative. What's it called? American. There's a new movie out about the stereotypes that a writer must write in order to get his.
American Fiction.
There we go. Ooh, thank you. American Fiction. Go
And,
see that movie, y'all.
and honestly, that's the story they want to portray about us because they feel like it works at the box offices for them. And we honestly need more storytellers. I didn't just want to be an actor because I started realizing very quickly you get disrespected a lot as a man too.
How so?
I'll use one example. I did a music video and I didn't care much about it. I was younger when I did this music video for the artist, and I'm shirtless in the music video, and she goes on a live and starts talking about how much she paid me to act on this music video. And she put me on the live and look at what my money paid for.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
felt this small. I felt this small. So I wanted to be a different voice. And I understand showing sexuality in a film because it's a part of life, but there's a way of showcasing it to where it's more humanized and we're not just, a piece of meat or, just there for that act and that's it.
Understood. Understood. Thank you. You guys enjoying it? I see the comments. Thank you for everybody who just joined. He's at Island S. Exactly. I agree. I see you. And I thank you guys for your feedback. Be sure to put your feedback in the chats. We will also open up for questions. I'm gonna go to Niji, Queen. Let me ask you, in your view, what are the specific challenges and vulnerabilities that individuals, particularly women, face in navigating the entertainment industry? And how can these challenges be addressed?
Oh, good question. I started out in the industry probably when I was about 6 years old, right? I stopped and it was like on and it was off and on, right? I started back up when I was about 16. Again, off and on. Certain things happened from 16 to 18 that just kind of shaped my mind about what I thought about the industry, what I wanted to do with the industry, and I just completely stopped. I didn't even pursue it anymore. I just stopped.
Can you get specific? What do you mean? What,
Oh
like
yeah.
generally?
Oh yeah, I will. So for me, some of those vulnerabilities or those challenges can be, gender discrimination, discrepancies in pay, sexual harassment, lack of or the difficulties, just trying to work through life balances. I've had children at a young age. I've had my first child when I was 16 years old. So, coming into the industry, I already had children. So I had to learn how to work through those things. Some of the things that happened when I was about 16, maybe 17 years old. Man, I tell you, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. At that age, I did not know. My family, they didn't want me to get into the industry. They felt like it was devil's work. So here it is. I'm pursuing this industry that is shunned upon by my family. So I'm making my way in without doing the research, without doing the reading. I'm just following homegirls, hey, girl, I'm going to this music video, or, oh, girl, you got it. Okay, all right. Not knowing what they had to do to get it. I was approached by a gentleman. He was like, you're so beautiful. You're a great fit for this role. You'll be acting in it. You'll have to do this, but I have to see that you know how to do this part. And of course it was, it was mild nudity or something like that. I can't remember. I was really young.
Yeah.
He was like, you have to reenact the scene with me, which is the director, first before you actually go and do it. I'm a young girl pursuing my career, just very, very naive. And I fell victim to it. I felt like, okay, well, again, my circle, my team, the people that I hung around the most, they made it and they're doing these things. Maybe this is what I had to do to make it. Once I did what I had to do, I felt so shameful. I felt so low. I felt so down. I just sat there. And I'm about to cry because that's what kind of shaped things for me. And I was just like, this isn't how I was raised. I don't think if this is what I have to do to be in the industry, I don't want to do it anymore. And come to find out, I never got the role. They never even called me back. They never called me back. They see me, when I used to go out a lot. I used to waitress on South Beach and do a lot of things. So I would see this particular director come up and I would say things like, yo, what happened? You know what I'm saying? You made me do this, da, da, da. He was like, what? Who are you? What are you talking about? I don't know you. I'm like, whoa. So it really shaped my mind.
So in light of some of this, and thank you for sharing that. And again, we're going to keep it 100 here today. Yeah. And I thank you for being so vulnerable. What would you tell your younger self as far as these type of challenges that, the pressure going to be applied? These people are going to come and like wolves, especially when it comes to younger folks. What would you tell your younger self now?
Go into nothing blindly. Go into nothing blindly. You are not the first person to enter into this industry. So if this is something that you want to do, don't go into this blindly. Go do the research. Even if you don't have the money, there's Google, there's so many books, there's so many things that you can do that I did not take advantage of. And again, that was just one story that I experienced. If I go through all of the things, that was just my moment where I said, you know what, this is enough. But I went through a lot, so don't go into this industry blindly. Like, it will tear you up. It will tear you up. And especially if you're an insecure person, or you don't have boundaries, or you don't have self-worth. I didn't have any of those things. I lacked a lot of those things coming into the industry. I just knew, I saw the Bill Cosby's, and I saw the, these shows, and I saw the Black people doing their thing. And I'm like, yo, I can do this. I used to practice with my brothers and sisters at home. And, we would do it at the house, and I would pretend I'm Whitney Houston and I'm singing, and I'm just this bubbly light, just to be navigated into different avenues in different ways. And it just really threw me for a loop, and I completely stopped.
We're grateful that you didn't quit, but again, you are not alone. As you stated, this experience is very common, and unfortunately, there are people that are utilizing under false pretenses this industry to get people into these type of situations. I'm going to pivot to Maxine. Tony, I see your hand up. Did you want to add something? Tony, I want to ask all of you.
Absolutely. Niji, she really hit a point there. Self-worth. A lot of us get into the entertainment industry and the accolades become our self-worth. So we're being manipulated because they understand where our self-worth relies. You definitely have to go into the industry already knowing what your self-worth is.
You better believe it.
Work with me for my talent, or you don't. And I'm out of here.
Yeah. You got to be used to so-called rejection, because sometimes, again, that's the biggest blessing, and so-called failure, because, again, I think it can wear you down. When I hear about a lot of, folks in the industry, actors and models, saying how many no's they got before they got a yes. And, while you're hustling, while you're waitressing, while you're doing all this other stuff, bills got to be paid, life still happening, kids, family, all that. You're thinking to yourself, I need to do more. I need to be, flexible and do what they need, et cetera, et cetera. But we got to be grounded. Thank you for that point, Tony. All of you, I guess, whoever wants to take this one, do you think the industry is doing enough? I know we've had this, renaissance of awareness, the Me Too movement and other, platforms that have come about to highlight this dark side of the industry. Do you think there's enough safeguards, new, policies, practices within this industry that has adequately started to address this? Anybody who wants that could take this.
Can I start?
No, go ahead.
The industry is trying, however, what I won't do, the next person will. So it makes it hard to tackle that situation because there's someone else that's going to do it. And a lot of these predators, they have a lot of power. And, a lot of the stuff that Niji speaks about, as soon as she started talking about that situation where she had to do something, I'm thinking in my head, and they didn't give her the part. Because I've heard so many times these predators are out there and they continue to do it because they feel like they can do it, and a lot of them are still going underneath the radar.
Anybody else want to add? Go ahead, Niji.
Yes, I agree with Tony a lot. I think they are trying. And I think the more celebrities or, entertainers in a whole are coming forward and speaking up, it's almost a must that something has to be done. I did want to interject that, there are programs and organizations that, women in film or just individuals wanted to take part in film that can research or go out to, one was what I just said was Women in Film. You have another one is Women That Makes Films, and then Women at Sundance. Those are some of the things that you can go to just kind of, see what can be done for you. How can you be protected in the industry? How can someone stand up for you? Once I had gotten to SAG, once I got into this industry, I realized how protected I am. When I was on a set, my most recent project, I had a love scene where it's complete nudity, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same at all. We had to have an intimacy coach involved. We had to have, different things, placed in certain parts and body parts. And there was questions being asked. Are you comfortable? Do you feel okay? Hey, are you, do you want to take a pause? Do you want to take a break? Like that, it made me feel more comfortable.
That's really wonderful what you pointed out. So SAG, just so people who don't know, just briefly, because we're going to run out of time. I'm going to ask everybody probably one more question. Keep your response to 60 seconds so we can leave some questions and answer time. But just tell us real quick, what is SAG? So for people who don't know.
SAG Actors Guild. So it's like it's a union. It's a union for actors. If once you become an actor, you have done a few films and you become credited, meaning you have been seen in certain films for a certain period of time. You join. You can join in with there's a membership to pay. You can get health insurance, all kind of backings, all kinds of things.
So yeah, protection. So joining an organization like any of the ones she just mentioned, including SAG, might also provide resources. So when you have these situations, you can ask somebody, is this normal? Did somebody really do this? Is this what we should expect? Maxine, I'm going to ask you this. I know you've been a part of... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you, as far as your performances to troops and dignitaries in conflict zones, first of all, thank you for doing that. And during those presentations, I noticed that your goal is to uplift, to empower. How do you believe the entertainment industry can leverage its influence to address the issues that you raised, sexual abuse in the military, human trafficking as well, both, domestically and internationally?
Just to go back to what Niji and Tony were covering, the organizations are there helping, to create laws for these organizations. I mean, for artists, but also governance of legislation would definitely help. I believe legislation can help as well, because we have these organizations, as Niji had mentioned earlier, but all these organizations are there and they will help, but they will be helpful. But legislation and governance is also going to be, I believe, more impactful, because they're, higher echelon of laws to help out the persons who are being sexually harassed, sexually abused, and
so write your
human
trafficking.
Trafficking. Yeah.
So
but
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to keep it moving, but go ahead. Please.
Okay. Yeah, no, but overall, the responsibility shouldn't, solely be placed on the artist, because we have parents like myself. My daughter doesn't watch or listen to just anything on the television or on social media. It's all of our responsibility. But when it comes to me, I chose to do positive and uplifting music. And I know artists should not be restricted, but we have a certain level of responsibility where we should restrict ourselves from saying certain things or calling, women certain names or whatever. And we can go into this deep and deep and deep, but I'll just leave it like that.
But I'm going to pause.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll just leave it as that. Yeah.
One more thank you for that response. I want to get to at least one more question for everybody. If you have any questions, guys, this is the time. Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm going to go back to Tony real quick. Let me ask you about shaping narratives, if I may, because I know you talked about your work and how personal it is to you to humanize the characters of in your film that represent us, that represent real people. So I wanted to ask you, knowing that you have the creative ability to shape narratives, all of us do, and bringing the importance of bringing important stories to the forefront, how can filmmakers and content creators contribute to raising awareness about abuse in the industry through their work?
I think proper storytelling, and speaking of being humanistic, you have to also be compassionate to the people that might not have the foresight, or that might not be compassionate enough to go out and tell these stories. Because just because you're a filmmaker and you're in a space where you can tell stories, your network might be different from mine. So I can't get mad at another filmmaker. I could no longer do that. I could only do my part because I'm a compassionate human being. I'm 44 now, so I'm a different storyteller than when I was 24 or 25 years old. And I've lived enough life to understand, if I write this character like this, and if I go in this direction with this character, this is what it's going to do to the audience. A lot of us are 50, 60 years old. We have no idea.
Yeah.
So it really takes a person that is compassionate and truly understands where the direction that it's going to take the audience by writing certain scenes and writing certain characters.
I love that. And I think, like you said, with life experience, hopefully, because sometimes age don't mean maturity, right? Hopefully you're living a little bit better. You've learned a lot more. You're trying to elevate in different areas of your life and understand the human experience. You bring that to your work. Don't just always go for the easy, cheap, joke, script, whatever it is. There's a lot more that we can share about our human experiences.
Absolutely.
Personal narrative. So I think that's powerful. So hopefully we get better with stage as we learn to share our stories and perfect our storytelling. I'm going to go to you. The entertainment industry often glamorizes certain aspects of this Hollywood life, as we talked about, while overlooking others like the ones you mentioned. What are, again, additional aspects that are overlooked that people should know about and be mindful of if they are entering the entertainment industry?
Another very, very good question. But I do want to add to the list that I did mention before. Some of those things that are overly glamorized, could be profanity, drug use, alcoholism, nudity. There's just so many different things, and I think coming into the industry, you just want to be aware of those things first, and you have to know. I think you just have to know your grounding. Like, it's just like Maxine said. Once you know, and if there's things that you're willing to do or not willing to do, it's just, for me, I think it's just plain and simple, just like that. Once those things shaped my vision, I think no's became easier for me. Certain things just was like, no, I don't want that kind of role. It might have taken me a long time to get to where I'm at in my career, but that's because I put on a lot of no's. That's because I didn't want to do a lot of the things that others was doing at all. So it's just about knowledge. I think, just having the knowledge about, what the industry is doing, and what you're willing and not willing to do.
So not going, as you said, with the rose-colored glasses and figuring out as we go along, and unfortunately falling prey to something. I see some questions now in the chat, guys. We are wrapping up. We have about 3 minutes. I think Tony handling business in the chat. The question was from Thank You, says, when the harassment happens, how do you heal from the traumatic experience? I think that's a great question. When it happens, while being in your natural flow. Listen, I have an event coming up Tuesday, and I'm going to ask my mental health, men in mental health, the same thing about corporate, because Black folks, people of color, we have a lot of trauma, and we bring it to the table in our work, in our lives, in our personal and professional lives, and we have to learn how to unpack and heal so that we can make space. Listen, I'm not going to get in my soapbox, but let me see what Tony wrote in the chat, because that's very real. He added that it was challenging at first as a man. Hold on, Tony. Let me just let you answer, Tony, real quick. How would you answer that?
It was interesting facing that at first, because as a man, you're taught, like, if women swoon over you or if they're coming at you, you're supposed to. It's flattering. But then when you sit back and really look at it, it's like, man, that was kind of gross. Like someone grabbing you like at an event. Like, it's like, man, like I feel terrible about this. And you think about it, it might not be the same night, might not be the same week, but you're going, unless, you're going to think about it later down the line. It's like, man, like I was just.
You wonder, how the heck did that happen? Did that really happen? No, I hear you.
And why did
this is real, y'all.
Questioning, like, why did that happen to me?
Right.
Did I allow that to happen to me? You start questioning yourself, and then you accept that it happened, and you try to find ways of moving on. You never move on from it, but you find ways of healing, and you find different ways of approaching the industry.
Yeah, I'm going to ask the ladies the same question.
Up already.
Yeah, we have about 2 minutes. I'm going to ask each of the ladies also to give us their feedback. Thank you, Tony, on this particular issue. How do you heal? Because we don't want people to be so afraid of this industry that they give up or they step back, because that happens too. A lot of people say, no, this is not worth it. I've been abused, I've been exploited, and it happens. Like I said, we were talking about entertainment. You can extrapolate and extend this to almost anything where traumatic experiences can happen to you. So I'm going to ask you ladies, 30 seconds each. Maxine, we'll start with you. How did you begin to heal so that you could move forward? What did you do after any of these possible traumatic experiences that you had in the industry?
Shared it with someone who I trusted, and I set boundaries. I mean, as simple as that.
Yeah. So knowing where you wouldn't cross over when it comes to offers of etc., as we've talked about. How about you, Niji? How did you begin your healing from any of the traumatic experiences that you've shared with us here today?
Long story short, I just turned to God. I really had to get back to the root of things. I was raised in church, and for me, that's what it was. And I didn't include him when I first went into the industry. I didn't include him when I was doing all of those things from 16 to 18 years old. So a lot of that trauma really, really dealt with me for a long time through relationships, through my children, through a lot. So the healing was a very, very long process for me. But that's what I had to do. I had to fast and do some things because I love the industry. I love to be in front of the camera and tell the story for a director or a writer. I turned into a whole nother person. So, and I didn't want to stop, but I wanted to make sure God was first. So that was the way I chose to heal.
Well, that was a great note to end this panel discussion on. Thank you so much, Tony, Maxine, and Niji. Y'all give them some claps, some emojis, show some love, and you guys can follow them. Again, they've been posted on Sabine's webpage and Instagrams, etc. So make sure you follow them. Tony, again, thank you for being here today. Thank you, Niji. Thank you, Maxine. We appreciate all of your insights here, and hopefully it helps somebody. All right. We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank
A
you.
pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for being a part of this virtual event. Of course, we appreciate you. Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Niji. All right, we're going to move now into what I'm looking forward to. So I met this beautiful lady online, Sabine, the vision behind this event, and we met virtually just now prior to coming on. But I'm interested to hear her keynote address this afternoon. Of course, I have not heard her personal narrative as we talked about the importance of sharing one's story in order for others to not feel alone in this journey, in order for others to learn from our experiences. And I'm so grateful that she, in fact, is an open book, and she will be spending some time with us, telling us about her journey in the entertainment industry. Without further ado, put some emojis in the chat for the lady of the hour, the visionary behind today's event. Please welcome back Sabine.
Thank you so much, Suzette, for the warm introduction. I am so happy to be here and to be amongst you all to share this, this important message. It is something that is dear to my heart, as you will find out very soon why. And so we have a presentation that should be shared shortly. And I'm just going to use it as I go ahead and share why this message is so important. So it's the dark truth behind entertainment abuse. And so, first of all, I want to also thank the panelists, the speakers who just got off, because these are, some of my friends. They are people that I've looked up to in my journey as I myself had tried to venture into the entertainment space. And so I'm so happy and thrilled that they were able to be here and share their knowledge and experience along their, from their journeys as well. So yeah, we're talking about the dark truth behind entertainment abuse. So again, my name is Sabine TMA, and my story actually begun really before entertainment, right? Nietzsche kind of touched on it. And it's the fact that before you enter this space, right, before you make the decision that you want to become an entertainer, me specifically, I went in with the hope and the dream to be a model, right? And if anyone has ventured in that space before, that modeling often comes with acting opportunities as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand in the industry. But I had the dream and passion of becoming a model. But I say that the story starts before then, because before I entered that space, what had happened in my life personally is that I had unresolved trauma that happened from early on as a child that, certain resources weren't available. And so they were never dealt with. I didn't know that I had things that needed to be healed and uncovered. Right now, we're in a space in our society where mental health is championed a lot more than it had been in the 90s and the 2000s, where my formative years, right, were taking place. So yeah, I didn't know that there was healing that needed to be done, right? And so I, just continued on living my life thinking that, well, as long as I was the good Christian girl that my parents raised me to be, that everything would be perfectly fine. And so in my adolescence, my early adulthood years, I, started to truly pursue modeling. And so I was going to castings and really just was super excited to see what the possibilities could bring. And I met a gentleman, who posed as a modeling agent, and he was definitely not the case. And so here on this chart, I just want to show you that when it comes to abuse in entertainment, the reason why it exists, at least from my own personal experience and what I've gathered from hearing other stories, is that there are power dynamics at play. And, because of those things, because there are people who have this tremendous amount of power that can decide whether you enter this space or not. See, entertainment is not like, you can't necessarily go to school for it, right? You can't, graduate from a program and all of a sudden you're an actor or a model or comedian or what have you. It often relies on the connections of others, and it relies on others who take a liking to you and who can see that you exude or have this talent, and they hire you from there, right? And so because of that, because of this tremendous amount of power that those individuals have, it creates a power dynamic between the person who's either doing the casting or the director, the filmmaker, the person with that power, and the other person on the other side of that who is wanting to get in and wanting to be an entertainer. And so going back to my own story, I met this gentleman and he posed as a modeling agent, and he told me, specifically back then, I'm talking early 2000s, right? There's always been a history in entertainment where at least it appears that there are less opportunities for minorities, for Black people, and also for women, right? And so this was his angle, to me, that, listen, I understand that you have this dream. You're a Black woman. You're also from a Caribbean household, right? An immigrant family. And so I'm going to help you get your foot in the door. And it was everything. It wasn't the case at all. And so again, when we talk about abuse in entertainment, please know that it's not something that just is exclusive to the wealthiest or the most famous, the people who are visible to us. It's happening on the ground floor. It's happening with everyday people, because everyday people want to get to that level. Those of us with the dream, we want to get to that level as the Tyra Banks and the various actors and entertainers that we look up to. And so how do we get there? Well, it starts from going to those casting calls and going to those things, and so so that's where my story led. Now, fortunately, after some time, I did have the ability to move away from this individual, but it wasn't something that was easy. It took a very long time. And I'm grateful, though, that I was able to get on the other side of this situation. And I did eventually go into, law enforcement. And law enforcement, there, I discovered, oh my goodness, it was young women who were involved in very similar situations as I was. And I found that many of those women, they were, kind of finding themselves in situations of abuse, and as far as, cases of human trafficking. And we touched on that within the panel discussion because it's a real thing. What you see in the movies, it's not always the case. Human trafficking, for those who may not know, it is actually the definition of it, and this is coming from Homeland Security, who is the branch of government that is, that they investigate, and their purpose is to detain people and arrest and do whatever they can to mitigate those cases of human trafficking. Now, their definition, it says human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sexual act. And so human trafficking, there's two distinct categories under that umbrella: forced labor and then commercial sexual acts. And so my story I found myself in a situation where I would not have signed up for it had I known that that was going to happen. But, you know, very similar to Niji, we have these situations where people are presenting this dream to us, and we just go in blindly, not knowing that, these things, it can catch up to us later, and it could affect our lives. But anyway, what Niji described and what happened to me was, in fact, sex trafficking, right? Anytime someone either uses force, fraud, or coercion to obtain an act, a commercial sexual act, it is considered human trafficking, right? And so this is what we find is happening quite often in entertainment, is that because of the nature of the business, it's so very easy to set up parameters to where these people with all the power, the casting agent, the filmmaker, the director, they can use the idea of going into that industry against you. They can see how far you're willing to go to get it, right? And so when I moved on from that situation and I went into law enforcement, I started assisting in a lot of cases of human trafficking, and I saw that, my goodness, you would think that these perpetrators, right, the traffickers, were, using the same handbook, because the MO, the mode of operation, was all the same. And so what happened is, when I got that experience and I went into, getting more involved in these cases, and even as I transitioned from law enforcement, I wanted to still remain in this space so that I can be a positive influence in, these cases, and making sure that what has happened to me and what has happened to others does not continue. And so I discovered a curriculum that's actually designed specifically for those who have been exposed to some degree, or what have you, of human trafficking. And the name of that program is Ending the Game. And so Ending the Game is a unique, and it's a first of its kind curriculum designed for victims and survivors of human trafficking. And so the idea behind this curriculum is that it helps individuals who have been exposed to this to essentially restore their lives and begin that healing process. And so it's an evidence-based program, and it is very effective. I went through it, and I'm a facilitator of that program. And so it is available for you, and it is a great tool. Even if you yourself haven't been exposed to those sort of elements within the entertainment industry or any industry, it is great to be informed on how human trafficking can take place and how abuse of varying kinds can manifest in the entertainment industry and abroad. And so what I want to do now is just talk about how abuse, we cover so much, but how abuse happens in entertainment. So exploring the ways, the culture of abuse and how it perpetuates. The speakers touch on this in the panel, but it's through, going back to that power dynamic, it's through elitism, it's through sexism, the varying forms of discrimination. And so they use these things that you yourself don't have any control over, right? As I mentioned, the gentleman who approached me, he was, emphasized the fact that I'm a Black woman and that there's, far and few opportunities within the industry. And so this is a tool that's being used by those who are in power. They play on things that you yourself can't control to get you to succumb, to their request, to succumb to the things that they would hope for you to do that you truly can say no to, in order to get you to lower your defenses and essentially fall into the trap, the common pitfalls that tend to happen in the entertainment industry. And so what I encourage all of you to do is to try to perpetuate a call for change, right? We need to address the root causes of abuse in order to create a safer industry. And it's to do the healing. I talked about earlier about how there was unresolved issues that needed to be addressed. So do the healing so that when you do enter the space of entertainment, you are coming with a confidence, a level of confidence in yourself. You have that self-worth. You have that confidence that if something doesn't feel right, you can speak up about it. You can, even if you're not totally informed of the laws and different resources that may be available, but you yourself, just when you feel that there's something that might be wrong or off in those scenarios that you may have with, the people that hold the power in the industry, you can take a minute. You always have that choice to take a minute and think to yourself, does this feel natural? Does this feel okay? And had I done that and had, certain resources available to me at the time, I could have made a choice. I could have taken a different path. And so again, this is why this topic is so important to me, is because we want to make sure that we can, change the narrative where, we may not totally eradicate abuse in entertainment, but what we can do is just inform people and, let them know that there is, another way. There is a way that you can go after your dreams and not have to be another name, another stat. And I want to shed light also to the fact that here in Florida, where many of us are, when it comes to human trafficking cases, Florida is actually the third state within the entire United States. And I'm not even touching what may happen internationally, but the third state of reporting human trafficking cases that were reported within the United States. The first being California and then Texas. And so what is unique about Florida as well is that there are, various people that come down here because of the attraction, especially within South Florida. And so, there is a potential for abuse and human trafficking. And so we want to make sure that you all are, informed. And so if you would love to know more on this topic, you would love to discuss more about it with me, you can make sure to do so at my my social media page, my website, and my email that's going to be available to you. So I'm just going to stop very briefly to see if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask any questions, may have any questions for me, and I'll be more than happy to share and respond.
Wow, sis. Wow. We appreciate you. We thank you. That was amazing. I see a question. Y'all put them in the chat right now for our visionary of today's event. Niji writes, how I'm going to interpret this. I see a little typo, darling, but let me see what it says. Let me back up.
Yes, y'all.
It's okay. How are building a level balance between home. Niji, you want to come back up, baby, and just ask a
So
question?
I'm just curious, how are you building that balance between home and the movement that you've taken on? How are you creating that balance? Because this movement is not a small movement. It's something really, really big. So I'm just kind of curious, as a mom, as a wife, how are you able to do that?
You're muted, sis. Just unmute for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Niji, for the question. And I'm so glad that you touched on that, because even on my social media, I call myself a mother and a mental health advocate, right? And I touch on and share tons of information about human trafficking and just the need to heal, right? It's so important that we heal. And so how I balance is that I see, the need and the importance of this subject. And I have those conversations even within my family, even with my husband, with my children. I talk about the importance of looking, the key factors to look out for, because again, these issues are not happening solely in entertainment. They're happening abroad. But for those who are interested in entering the entertainment industry, or who have children, right? Because I'm a mother, and I know many mothers and parents who have an interest of, putting their children in acting, modeling, or what have you. And so these issues that we talk about, they are relevant, for the parents to know on behalf of their children. And so the balance for me is just getting my family involved and making sure that the key lessons that I learned from my own journey, both personally and professionally, that I implement them in our lives as a family and, with my children as they come up into this world.
Thank you. Very powerful. Thank you for that question. Any other questions, guys? I will echo the sentiments again in the chat. Love seeing the emojis, and I love everybody enjoyed that keynote, my dear. And Odiana wrote, your testimony will save so many women, Sabine. So we concur strongly, and we thank you for dedicating yourself to this cause, because we know there are others out here that have to be educated, and that's why we're putting this together today, so that we can share good information with each and every one of you watching. So be sure to pass it along. And we want to thank you, my dear, for not just thinking about, but doing something about it. So appreciate you. Let's hear it for our keynote. That was amazing. We have a couple more resources, ladies and gentlemen, that we want to share with you. So don't go anywhere. We are on schedule. We are moving right into our legal perspective, as I'm also a TV host, an attorney, YouTuber, all of that. We want to know, what are your legal rights when it comes to this type of situation? So we're having pre-recorded a presentation by an attorney. I am excited to have her. Her name is Rebecca Belliard. Rebecca is an award-winning business, entertainment, and trademark attorney. She is also a renowned speaker and consultant. She wasn't able to join us, so she pre-recorded this for us, but her career is marked by impressive legal expertise in intellectual property and general corporate matters, where she has represented the likes of Fortune 500 companies and negotiated contracts of over 1.2 billion. Rebecca regularly speaks on cutting-edge topics in the entertainment industry, women's issues, diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as professional development. In addition to her multifaceted career, Rebecca has developed a signature workshop called Shoot Your Shot in the Professional Arena. We'll hear from Rebecca P. Billiard now. Sound check, sound check. I think as we are testing that sound, again, we appreciate your patience on this virtual platform. You never know what can happen. So we have two legal perspectives that we're going to bring to you shortly. But instead, how about we get another performance as we work out our sound dynamics? Let's hear from none other. I heard him during the run through, so I got a taste of him. And I'm grateful that he's here to bless us. His name is Mr. Paul Morris. Paul is a musical artist from Miami 305 in the building. He started out performing in church like so many artists, and he has traveled around the world and worked with producers for Beyonce, as well as, yeah, can I say Kanye West? Can we say that, or we just have to say yay now? Okay, he has opened up for Lecrae and other gospel artists, as well as working alongside of Papa San, as well as other choreographers and international artists. I can go on, but we love to hear from him directly, right? So live and in color, let's welcome Mr. Paul Morris.
All right. What's going on, guys? You can hear me all right there?
Yes, sound great.
Awesome, awesome. All right. Well, I will get into the first song. My name is Paul Morris. It's called Shea Butter. I have two, right? I believe.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. So let me not waste no time.
Yo.
Yo. Salon. Shea butter. Almond kisses make me want you more. I stutter. Let me lick it before it hits the floor. You got that ebony ivory, coconut ice cream. Let me get it. I can't help but to lick it. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ebony ivory, coconut ice cream. Let me get it. I can't help but to, I won't waste one drip. No, I won't waste your body, mahogany under the candlelight. Ice cold, but a hottie. Hot Foot Sunday, just the way I like it. Oh, I felt it. You just melted. All these sweets, it makes time move backwards. You got that ebony ivory, coconut ice cream. Let me get it. I can't help but to lick it. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ebony ivory, coconut ice cream. Let me get it. I can't help but to. I won't waste one drip. Perfect sunrise. All those brown eyes. Love has never felt this way before. Everything you do makes me want you more. I swear I do. I swear it's only you. Shea butter, shea butter. Your almond kisses make me want you more. I stutter, I stutter. Let me lick it before it hits the floor. Stutter. Yes, sir. You guys have anything
The
to say about it?
Jamaican salute. Bop, 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 bop. Let's go.
Love and
All right,
respect,
shout
man.
him out in the
Bop,
chat,
bop, bop.
y'all. Show some love. Next song, please, sir.
I
Woo.
got you. This one is called 1,000 Times or 999, right? These thoughts replay inside my mind. I swear I failed at that. Tried to resist, but I refuse to let you go. I swear I'll make you work this time. Who said all good things come to end? You said we're better off as friends. Oh, we should just start over again. And if it takes 1,000 times, I'm still at 999. And you should give me one last try. I still have one lifetime to make you mine. If it takes 1,000 times, I'm still at 999. And you should give me one last try. I still have one lifetime to make you mine. Lost in the days when you sway. This hasn't been short of amazing. I cherish the angel, you left some clothes in my mattress. Heaven on earth is your address. Darling, you should come home to these paragraphs and red roses that lead to the bathtub. 'Cause if it takes 1,000 times, I'm still at 999. And you should give me one last try. I still have one lifetime to make mine. 1,000 times. I'm still at 999. Right? My name is Paul Morris. You can find me on all social media at The Real Paul Morris. I really appreciate you guys having me. And this is the first time I even worked this setup. I really literally
Sir.
just figured it out.
Sir.
Right?
Sir, this is the hand claps.
I appreciate it.
Wow. What a blessing. Man, you are amazing. Not that I'm surprised. Hello, somebody. Y'all give it up in the chat. Such a beautiful voice. The feedback, please read the chat, sir. You're deserving of all that praise and more. We appreciate you blessing us this afternoon and much continued success on your journey. Y'all follow him, y'all support him. Y'all, you got something on iTunes. What you got out there that we can support?
So I am The Real Paul Morris on all social medias, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I just did a song with Mike Smith from Slip and Slide Records. I have a song with the Curb that no one really knows about yet, but I'm about to release it. He just signed to Issa Rae. If you type in Paul Morris, Shea Butter, or Encore, or any of the above, you should be able to find me. and I'm very accessible. Everything is the real Paul Morris. You could call me as soon as
Let's
you
go.
DM me. I
Book and
send you my
business.
number. Let's do it. I know there's a lot of actors, a lot of great people in here. If you need some music for your movie score, if you need somebody to bring a light around, if you need somebody to figure out sound real quick,
Let's
you need
go.
somebody to sweep, I'm here for it. All right. So I'm just here to serve.
Man of many talents. I'm following you like right now. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a part of today's incredible virtual event. We thank you for this new found setup. Now you can use it all over. Make sure you support him. And again, as he mentioned just now, this is also about connecting with one another. Check out the chat, y'all. See who's in there. Follow each other, connect with one another, because this, again, is a big industry. Again, some scary stuff can go on, but we can have one another's back. So again, the connection piece, let's connect. Make sure you do that as we move into our final phase here of this conference. So I think we're going to skip the video for now, because I don't know if we've gotten the sound piece, but we're going to do a fireside chat. And well, you want to try the video again, please? Let's see if we can get the sound from our legal eagle, the legal perspective from Rebecca Belliard. She took time to make the video. We want to present you with information. Let's go ahead and go to that now.
Hi everybody, my name is Rebecca P. Belliard, and I am an award-winning entertainment, business, and trademark lawyer. I am very thankful to Sabine for having me and for creating a platform to really discuss something that is so important that oftentimes is overlooked until the harm happens, until someone is abused. More conversations need to be had about what we can do to avoid or at least protect ourselves from abuse. I've worked in so many different sectors of the entertainment industry, from working, in film and TV, Viacom, CBS, music at Sony, tech, Amazon Music. For my New Yorkers, I've worked at Hot 97 radio station, and abuse can happen anywhere at any time. So really equipping yourself with the knowledge and the tools are so important. Oftentimes, it is quite difficult for folks to advocate for themselves in the workplace. And I just mean generally advocating for a promotion, a raise, whatever it may be. But advocating for yourself in the workplace, in a negative environment, in a hostile work environment, these are keywords that I'm using. When you are a victim of abuse, you are working in a hostile work environment. Advocating for yourself becomes 20 times more difficult. 20 times more difficult. And oftentimes people don't advocate for themselves. They don't stand up for themselves. They don't protect or safeguard themselves. And while there are so many resources that you can use to help you get through this tremendously difficult point in your life, it is important that we hold bad actors responsible so that the cycle of harm isn't perpetuated. So what I do want to cover today and emphasize is the importance of holding abusers and bad actors accountable and liable for their behavior. I'll give an overview, but myself and my incredible colleague, Shayla, she'll kind of get more into the nitty-gritty of how to protect yourself from this type of behavior. But I do want to emphasize the importance, super, super important. Your employer cannot stop this type of behavior if they are not aware of the behavior. One of the most important things that you can do from a legal perspective is to report this behavior. If your company has an employee handbook, 9 times out of 10, there will also be a sexual harassment policy. In that policy, they will outline who to report this type of behavior to. They're called reporting channels. If there's anything that you remember from today, remember the importance of reporting this type of behavior. Now, in addition to reporting this type of behavior internally at your workplace, there are other resources that provide legal support to help women and men navigate the complexities of this type of abuse in the workplace. One of those organizations is called Time's Up. It's a legal defense fund, and it's administered by the National Women Law Center, and they provide resources and assistance to people who are victims of abuse in the workplace. Another organization which you may have heard of is called the Me Too Movement. It is founded by an incredible Black woman who has created a platform and essentially a number of resources for folks who may be victims of abuse. Finally, there's the National Sexual Assault Legal Hotline. These are all great resources that you can tap into. While all of these resources are incredible resources, I want to emphasize again, if there's anything you remember, it does not replace you reporting the behavior in the workplace and to authorities. It is so important to report it, because if you do not report it, 9 times out of 10, the behavior does not stop. It does not stop. Again, thank you to Sabine for having me. My colleague Shayla is going to get more into the nitty-gritties of what to do, what not to do. But I, pray and hope that no one finds themselves in this predicament. It's horrible and it's traumatic, but really equipping yourselves with the knowledge, maybe you can help save someone else's life and really help be there to support them. By now having attended this panel, you now have the information that you can equip your friends and families with. And hopefully there will be a day where we will not have to have these conversations anymore. Thank you so much, Sabine.
Awesome. Rebecca Villiard doing the work, still providing so much value. Record, report, hello somebody, tell somebody simultaneously. I'm excited again for so much great information going out there, going forward to you. We hope you're enjoying. We're going to now move into a fireside chat. I'm going to turn it over to Sabine. She is going to do a one-on-one with Miss Kamala K. Kamala is a professional agency signed international model who has booked print campaigns and TV commercials for global brands such as the Ritz-Carlton, Kohl's, Bacardi, IT Cosmetics, David Beckham, and others. She is also a modeling mentor who teaches aspiring models how to become agency signed models and how to have a confident on-camera experience that transforms your photos into newsworthy posts. In addition, Kamala K is also a posing coach expert and does one-on-one coaching in that arena. And she helps coach high-achieving women to live at their branding she coaches, I see what it is, a little typo here, high-achieving women live at their branding photo shoot. So if you need help during a photo shoot, how to pose, how to feel confident, what to do, she can help you out, y'all, so that they can elevate their on-camera presence. She's also recently released a posing course, called Perfect Poses. How about that? So I'm going to bring back Miss Sabine as well as Kamala K to do this fireside chat.
Hello. Just a quick clarification. I know a lot of times people get it confused, but it's Kamala versus Kamala.
Oh, excuse me. See, I had you with the VP. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Kamala
K. Yeah.
Kamala. Okay, Kamala. Welcome. Thank you
for having me.
Pleasure.
Hello, Kamala. So happy that you can join us today and really discuss, all the things about modeling and the greater topic of abuse in entertainment. And as both myself and even Niji had touched on, because we both were aspiring models at some point, right? It's so great to have you here to shed light on some of your experience and expertise in the modeling industry specifically and entertainment in whole. So I just wanted to start off by asking you, is there anything that you can share from your personal experiences or observations regarding abuse or exploitation within the entertainment industry, specifically for aspiring models, but entertainers in general?
Yes, great question. And good to see you again. I actually met your modeling event that I had hosted. So to your question, when I started, so I've been modeling now professionally for the last 12 years. And I remember at one point when I was developing my portfolio, I met with a photographer who is pretty well established in the industry. And just to kind of rewind a little bit, in the modeling industry, as I'm sure that you've seen with photos, especially with things fashion related, it is part of the culture, the norm for models, for women to do like topless shoots, or even if you're covered, to like just have like your hand across your chest, but still very suggestive of nudity, right? And for myself, it was always part of just who I am value-wise, that I wasn't doing anything nudity-wise. that I just, in my brain, I always just told myself, like, men want one thing from you, you know, in the sense of be really mindful of the situations that I was putting myself in, right? And so, but that was my life, like from a personal standpoint, right? I was very particular and just even giving guys my phone number. Like I was very strict because I wanted to protect myself in certain ways. But then when I brought that into the modeling industry and learning that, because I didn't have a modeling mentor, I didn't have a modeling coach, there was no Instagram with all of the tips out there, right? And so I remember going on a photo shoot with this photographer, and we were doing 4 looks, so 4 outfit changes, right? And we got to the point where we were doing like the bathing suit scene, and he was like, oh, maybe you can do one like where your top is off, like, you know, very fashion related. And I said, you know, like that's just, you know, not my personality, but I felt like so much of the pressure, right? And he's like, you know, we don't have to show anything, but we can still like just make it be fashion oriented without showing anything. So that was at the start of my career. And in that moment, I felt so much pressure that I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. But like, one, I'm going to take my top off and you can't like look while I'm doing this, right? But so when I did the shot, I don't have my bathing suit top on, but like the photo is literally like this. Because I was like, I'm going to be covered. So even if it's somewhat suggestive of like what's typical in the industry, I'm going to be covered, even though like he would have preferred that I did like one of these, because then that's like sexier. But I still, even though I was still able to maintain some of what I knew was true to myself, and that I didn't want pictures out there of me showing my breasts, like I still felt that pressure to even do a little bit of what he wanted, right? And then after the fact, I was like, I'm not going to post this photo. Like even though I'm technically covered, fully covered, essentially, but it's the suggestion of the fact that I have my top off, right? And I knew that my platform that I wanted to use moving forward was letting models know, like, hey, you can achieve. Obviously, now these years have come where I've achieved working with all of these major brands, but I wanted to let other models know that you can develop a strong modeling portfolio. You can eventually book these jobs with these brands and never once be nude in any of your content, right? And so unfortunately, though, the industry and photographers, especially, it seems like male photographers, because I've never had that experience with any female photographers that I've worked with, but all the male photographers, it just seems like it's a rite of passage almost for you to take a photo with your top off. And especially with me living in Miami, everything is bathing suit centric, right? Like the industry is very much like every single model has images in their portfolio in a bathing suit. And a lot of those models have some of the shots that are suggestive. And I said, you know, like, if this is what it's going to take for me to get to a certain level, then I'm just going to have to miss out on certain jobs. And it has prevented me from certain jobs, again, because living in Miami, everything is bathing suit based and body, showing off your body. And so there are things that I've missed out on, but it is what it is for me. But in the same token, it's just a testament that for when I do talk to models and I coach aspiring models, letting them know that even though you may miss out on some things, there are still going to be amazing opportunities. Like when I worked with the Ritz-Carlton, I did 2 shoots with them, and it was a total of $10,000. I was fully clothed, you know, for working with their brand. And so the opportunities can still be there, even if some of them, you know, are thrown to the wayside.
Yes, Kamla, thank you so much for your response. I love what you said. It really alluded to me, or your response alluded to the fact that everyone has a choice at the end of the day. I mean, even when you talk about feeling those moments of pressure, like feeling under pressure, you still took it a bit further and said, you know what, let me kind of negotiate this situation here. And instead of having one arm, let me do 2. Where some people may not feel like they have a choice. And at the end of the day, you have a choice no matter what. I speak a lot about, even if you don't have the language, because when you're coming from an unhealed place like I was, even when you don't have the language, what you can refer to is the feelings that you have inside. What are you feeling in those moments? What's literally that feeling in your gut? So thank you so much for sharing that. So my next question would be, we touched on this a bit, but what are some of the red flags aspiring models and entertainers need to watch out for?
Oh my goodness, this is a loaded question, in the sense of there are so many that I try to talk to my clients about, or even just like on social media. So For instance, when a photographer, so it's very common in the industry when you book like a paid modeling job, for instance, that you're not allowed to bring anyone to set with you, right? Because at the end of the day, this is still a job. You're going to be in a professional, or you're supposed to be in a professional setting. But if you are asking, like, say that you're doing a test shoot, right? So test shoot is a shoot that you're doing with a photographer to develop your portfolio. If you're doing a test shoot, especially if you're supposed to be paying this photographer, and they're very adamant that you cannot bring anyone with you to this shoot, especially if it's someone that you've never met before, usually I'm a little bit apprehensive about that. So yes, sometimes they may not want you to bring anyone just for logistics purposes, but certainly if someone wants to be there with you and at least be there for a short amount of time, that should not be an issue at all with the team that you're working with. And one of the things that I like to do in order to mitigate these situations and to be mindful of red flags is whenever I am meeting with a photographer, meeting with someone new, generally what I like to do is I actually go. So let's say the photographer has an Instagram page, right? And they have a bunch of models on there that they have tagged as apparently people that they have worked with, right? I will then send an Instagram message, like a private inbox message to that person that I saw tagged. And I will say, hey, XYZ name, give them a compliment. People love compliments, and just know that you're coming from a positive space. And then I say, hey, I saw that you worked with XYZ photographer. They reached out to me to do a shoot, or I'm considering reaching out to them to do a shoot. Did you have a good experience working with this person? Would you recommend working with them? And I would say now in my career, I don't work with a photographer. I don't apply to a modeling agency, because even modeling agencies, even the biggest ones of the world, doesn't mean that just because they're a big brand or big agency doesn't mean that they're all reputable in how they treat their models, right? So even when I'm applying online to a huge modeling agency, I still reach out to the models that are tagged on their page and I say, how do you like the team at the modeling agency? How do they treat you? Are they treating you with respect? So I make I have those conversations before I even go about applying or making it known that I want to partner with any of these individuals.
That is awesome. Like in my presentation, I had a slide where I said vet your connect, right? Because, and so the connect in this scenario would be your photographer, because this is the person that's helping you along your journey. But you have to vet. And one way to do that, like you said, is to basically, like the same way you would do with Yelp and everything else. You won't eat what some people won't even eat in a restaurant, step foot in a restaurant without checking the reviews first. So you want to do that. And the only way to do it is to find that way. I want to touch back on my story, because back then, early 2000s, we didn't have certain things available to us, right? Like Instagram, where we can just easily message someone. And so what I want to share too is that people should really take advantage of the resources we do have available, right? Literally at our fingertips right now, where you can kind of go even beyond just Googling someone, but really speak to someone who's been in interaction, connection with that entity or that individual person within the industry. Yes. So thank you so much, Kamala. So this next question is, can you provide guidance on navigating contracts and agreements to ensure that aspiring models or entertainers are protected from exploitation or unfair treatment?
Yes, really good question, because contracts are king in terms of either determining what you can do in that moment, or even how it's going to affect you 5 years down the road, right? So for instance, when you're an aspiring model and maybe you are, let's just use the example of a modeling agency, right? Because a lot of times, of course, there are freelance models, and that's a route that a lot of people can take, especially because sometimes it is hard to get in with modeling agencies. But a lot of times I do advocate to be signed with a modeling agency versus trying to do everything on your own. Because when you are with an agency, their job is to help protect you from all of the nuances that sometimes comes along when you're a freelancer and you're trying to figure out everything on your own. So with a modeling agency and the contracts, like their job as the agency is to read the contract that a photographer is giving you, or to read the contract that a brand is giving you, so that if you don't have your own personal attorney, or if you don't know anything about these things, the agency is going to be the ones having the conversations with the entire team before you ever get involved, right? So that is one thing that I would say of why I do advocate for aspiring models to go the route of being agency signed. So with that, with contracts, a lot of times when you read a contract, people are not very well versed, right, on what's inside the contract or what should and shouldn't be in there. So I do, like, even on my social media, I have a modeling ebook on my website, and in there I really break down what are the things that you should what are the things that you should expect in a contract, and what are the things that you should not expect. So for instance, when you are navigating contracts, a big thing is you should never, ever, ever be paying a modeling agency in order to get a contract, right? If someone is offering you a contract, you shouldn't have to pay to be able to get them to work with you, right? Like when it's a modeling agency situation, they're only getting paid after they find you jobs, and then they take a percentage, right, from the income that you earn. However, I get a lot of aspiring models in my DM, and they say, oh, this company or this agency reached out to me, and they say that I have to pay like an enrollment fee, for instance, right? Or an application fee. And I'm like, there should never be a fee to get a contract. So like a good example, my model masterclass is coming up in March, and I do have aspiring models fill out an application just so I can see if they're a good fit for my program. But although there's a fee to be in my program, there's no application fee, right? Anybody can apply and see if they're the right fit. And then obviously I'm going to spend 4 weeks of coaching them. So then they do have to pay for my time in that way. But there should never be, a lot of times the agencies or the photographers that are trying to scam the models try to get money up front, right? And that should not be the case. Now, when it comes to the contracts as well, you want to, when you're reading a contract through a modeling agency, I always say a lot of times aspiring models, like they're so focused on making sure that they don't mess up an opportunity, right? They're like, oh my gosh, someone finally offered me a contract. Let me like not ask too many questions and potentially ruin this experience. No. Ask the questions. If there is a sentence or clause in there that you don't understand, or if you don't agree with, go back to that person and say, you know what, I would like to negotiate this part of the contract. So for instance, when I'm negotiating contracts with contracts with modeling agencies, or even with brands, especially now with like social media partnerships, if the agency wants to have a 3-year contract with me, which is going to limit me and what I can do with other companies, I go back and say to them, how about a 1 or 2 year contract, right? Versus a 3-year contract. And then if we have a good working relationship, then we can extend that contract, right? But don't automatically sign just because you're afraid of missing out on that opportunity. And then if you're not sure, sometimes contracts, they have a lot of legal terms. Go ahead and spend the money to get a lawyer to just read that section of the contract for. Like, I'm fortunate, I'm actually married to an attorney, and so he can review some things for me. But even then, like before we ever met, I was always reviewing all my contracts because I spent the time to do the research to understand all of those things. And if I wasn't sure, I would reach out to another model and say, hey, this was like the contract terms. Is 20% agency fee common? Which, yes, in the United States, if you're listening, 20% agency fee is common. But then you're thinking, if someone gives you a contract says 30 and 40% in the United States, if you don't know that, well, then that's a red flag, or something that at least another model can tell you on. So that aspect of asking questions is so important.
Yes, wow, that is great information. And I've heard some pretty peculiar situations in and around contracts. And so it's so good that you shed a light on that and really gave some insightful information. So my next and final question is, what advice do you have for aspiring models on maintaining their well-being and self-esteem in an industry that can be demanding and competitive? And again, we're talking about modeling, but this is really across the board for entertainers.
I would say that I think a huge part of this is understanding that rejection is part of the game, right? So for instance, literally yesterday, I was going through my comments on Instagram to see from a post that I had just made about my model masterclass. And someone posted on there, she's like, oh, I would love to join, but I'm sure that agencies aren't going to be trying to sign up an aspiring model that's 40 years old. And literally her comment was just all these fears and doubts and insecurities coming through in her comment, even though my entire post and caption was talking about how agencies are changing so much that they're now accepting models of all different age ranges, right? And so I think people need to understand that just because something is not going to necessarily be easy doesn't mean it's impossible, right? And just because there's a lot of rejection in the industry, it doesn't mean that you should compromise your beliefs or your values to get a little bit further ahead or to progress down the line a little bit faster, right? So with the rejection piece and the self-esteem, you have to be obviously surrounded by people who are going to be building you up and people who are going to be helping you to either achieve this dream or to at least point you in the right direction. And if you don't have those people around you, because let's face it, not everyone has a strong supportive circle, then knowing, okay, why am I doing this? What is my long-term goal for why I want to pursue this, right? And then there was something that was mentioned at one point in this entire conversation with all of the other panelists about therapy, right? Like, and I'm a big advocate of going to therapy, because something that you even said, Sabine, was being able to get through that healing place and not making some of these, let's just say, mistakes, for lack of a better word right now, but not falling into some of these traps rather. And you can prevent sometimes falling into some of those traps when you have a higher self-worth and self-esteem. And sometimes the way to get there is through therapy, like a professional therapist, because our girlfriends, our friends may love us, but they may not be able to provide that type of mental support that we need in order to see our worth and to see our value. So I would say, definitely making sure that you understand rejection is part of the game. And even if it takes you extra time, take the extra time versus being taken advantage of. And then making sure that you are healing whatever baggage that you potentially have that is causing you to think that you should cut corners in trying to achieve these goals. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, it definitely did. And I love that you touched on the entire conversation, because what I pulled not only just from what you said, but even something that was shared from Tony, who was on the panel, was that a lot of the reasons why we hear about these scenarios and cases of abuse is because even when there's one person like yourself who has a high self-worth and has those standards and are holding people accountable that are in the industry to treating you right, the next person may be so wanting this career in entertainment that they make those mistakes and then they fall for those pitfalls. And so it's a matter of us all kind of looking at this whole thing and asking yourself, why are you doing this? And what is the driving force behind your dream? And also reimagining what success means to you, because if this is your dream, you don't have to reach the highs of highs and be the most famous to be doing your dream. You could be a working model, a working actor, and maybe on your way to achieving certain accolades, but don't let that accolade be the driving force of your own self-worth. Your self-worth begins before even entering the entertainment industry, always continuously building on who you are and what you stand for. And so thank you so much for being here. And if you have anything else.
Yeah, I want to say one final point because I think it's important, and that is really quickly. So a lot of times people, when they're trying to get ahead in this entertainment industry and they feel like they have the pressure, there's so much pressure to make it work, right? To be a success because they have bills and they have all of these responsibilities. And so sometimes people, in order to achieve their goals, they're quitting their job, they're moving across country and doing all of these things to make the dream happen. And because of being in the place of desperation to make it happen, then you're making decisions that you probably wouldn't have made if you had more time, flexibility, and finances to make wiser decisions, right? So I always tell my aspiring models, aspiring actors, whatever the case is don't quit your full-time job, right? Until you have a little bit more stability. And if you do quit your full-time job, like I actually did quit my full-time job to pursue my modeling, but I prayed about it for an entire year. I literally was talking to God about it, and I did not quit my job until I felt like it was a definitive go ahead from him, right? So whatever your faith is, just if you are going to move in that direction, make sure that you at least have the savings to back up so that if a situation comes up where someone is promising you this huge opportunity and you have to compromise your beliefs and you're thinking, wow, I could really use that $2,000 or that $5,000 that they're offering if I just take my top off, you won't be in that predicament because you're like, I still have money to pay my bills. I don't need to take, you know what I mean? Like I can wait until it's something that lines up more in my values. And I think that's one of the pieces that sometimes people miss because they feel like they have to go the entire route or they have to quit everything else to really be dedicated to their dream. And no, like your full-time job could be the job that helps fund your dream so that you can still make the dream happen, but also have the finances with it. And then the last thought is a resource that people can use is on Instagram. There's an organization called Model Alliance. I don't know if anyone mentioned it, but they are basically an organization that is helping to change the trajectory of how the modeling industry is going. So they're based out of New York. So they have been able to get laws passed in New York so far, like the Fashion Workers Act, to really protect models, stylists, set designers, like all the people that we sometimes don't see in the forefront that still are part of the entertainment industry, to make sure that they get fair wages, to make sure that in cases of sexual abuse, that their abusers are held accountable. So I would say follow Model Alliance, because they really have a lot of good information on there to protect models and those in the industry as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the resources, for the information. We have a lot that we can work with, and we just hope that the audience here can truly put everything that was said into practice and feel more empowered along their journey towards their dreams. Thank you so much, Kamala.
I'm going to move now to one more legal expert. We're excited to have her, Miss Shayla N. Walden. Shayla's session will focus on the legal implications of sexual harassment and abuse in the workplace, with a focus on managing the power dynamics. We heard Savine talk about the power dynamics before. This is a very important topic, y'all, that often exists in this entertainment space. So both from a perspective of the entertainer, as well as from the perspective of the business entities doing the business with the entertainers, right? Those who are hired, right? And the hiree, right? She has handled employment law related matters for more than 10 years, and she has assisted employers with developing policies and assisted them with also ensuring that these policies are enforced, and I would add to that fairly, and has also conducted internal investigations, recommended corrective actions in the workplace, etc. So we have a subject matter expertise, y'all. Let's welcome now to Lights, Camera, Action for Change, Miss Shayla N. Walden. Welcome, Shayla.
Thank you so much, Suzette. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here for this very important conversation. As Suzette mentioned, my name is Shayla Walden, and I'm an experienced labor and employment lawyer who's handled hundreds, if not thousands, I think it's about thousands over the course of 10 years, including matters related to sexual and other types of harassment and other abuse in the workplace. My work's been primarily on behalf of employers, which has given me some insight on the way that employers can and should work to combat abusive behavior in their respective industries, including entertainment. A word of disclaimer that I always have to give every time I give a presentation. My comments here today are my own personal comments based on my personal and professional experience, and as such, I don't speak for my firm in that regard. Plus, my comments today are just educational and are not intended to be legal advice of any kind. For advice pertaining to any specific situation, please don't hesitate to contact me after this presentation. There's different categories of abuse, which range from harassment all the way to forcible sexual contact. For example, federal criminal statutes define sexual abuse as causing another person to engage in a sexual act, such as with someone who is physically incapable of declining the contact or otherwise engaging in a sexual act with someone without their consent. Harassment, in particular sexual harassment, is the unwanted, unwelcome sexual contact or conduct that has the effect of either suggesting that a term, condition, or privilege of employment, which is often referred to as the quid pro quo, or it has the ability to create an offensive, abusive, intimidating, or hostile work environment. Sexual harassment doesn't always include someone touching you, though that's the most common form, but it could include the way that someone speaks to you, such as making jokes or suggesting that you act or dress a certain way to make yourself appear sexier, or you'd look better if you wore tighter clothes or something of that nature. Nevertheless, most sexual harassment policies in the workplace define sexual harassment more broadly than the law does. And thankfully it does, with good reason. Because those policies often define sexual harassment more broadly, the key to combating any potential for abuse is to identify any and all uncomfortable behaviors and document it. So, how do you document? This can be done in a journal or diary, but also should be done in an email, letter, carrier pigeon, verbal, however you have to get it to them. You've got to let the company know, you got to put them on notice that there is abusive behavior going on in your workplace. Sometimes, if you need to, the owner or CEO of the company should be put on notice about this kind of behavior, because the goal is to get it to a person so that the company is on notice to be able to do something about it. Companies, as my colleague Rebecca had mentioned before in part one, companies are obliged to make sure that they're taking steps to prevent sexual harassment and other forms of abuse in the workplace. Plus, to be able to succeed on many legal claims, such as claims of racial or sexual harassment under Title VII or similar state and local laws, one of the threshold issues is whether the employee actually made a report. Talking to coworkers is fine for venting, but unless that coworker is going to go to management for you, the company is likely not going to know anything about what happened. And so any plaintiff side lawyer is likely going to ask you about any complaints you made. And a lawyer that typically defends cases like this, such as myself, I first look to see, did the employee make the company aware about this abuse harassment in the workplace? The failure to report honestly can be the death knell for a claim. And more than that, and most importantly, when we think about it just outside of the legal realm, it creates an opportunity for the abuse to continue and for someone else to suffer much in the same way that you did. So when we go into the workplace, everyone has a right to work in an environment that's free from harassment and discrimination. If the workplace is not providing that, there are avenues available to employees to seek redress, especially if attempts have been made internally to get things right. For example, in states like California, employers must provide employees with information regarding how to report harassment to government agencies outside the company, such as the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. In New York, you'd look to the Division of Human Rights, and in Florida, you might look to the Florida Commission on Human Relations. And from a federal perspective, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is always available to handle those issues. These agencies conduct an investigation of the complaint and work with the company and you to provide a resolution to the case. If there's no resolution, though, the government agency will issue what's called a right to sue letter and permit you, the complainant, to proceed to court with a lawsuit, but you have to do that within a certain amount of time. And that usually will depend upon what agency it is and sometimes the type of claim that you're bringing. So if you go the route of a lawsuit, are you going to have to be keeping any settlement or any resolution confidential? As someone who's represented companies for years, absolutely. That's one of the first things that clients often ask me to put into a settlement agreement. But in recent years, there's been some changes on the scope of confidentiality. For example, companies that are faced with sexual harassment and abuse claims may not be able to deduct payment of any settlement on their company taxes. In addition, the National Labor Relations Board determined last year that employers have to limit the scope of any confidentiality obligations for their employees, especially in settlement and separation agreements, to allow an employee to engage in what's called protected concerted activity. So what does that term mean? It's really a fancy way of saying that employees have to be permitted to gather together with one another to petition their employer for ways to improve their working conditions. And according to the National Labor Relations Board, confidentiality obligations, especially if worded too broadly, can have a serious effect on employees' ability to do that. And employees always, even if you had signed a confidentiality agreement of some kind, if there is unlawful conduct going on in your workplace, you always maintain the right to go to a government agency such as the EEOC or the Florida Commission on Human Relations and the like, you would have the ability to go and still file those charges. They can't stop you from doing that. Again, the goal is always to get rid of abusive behavior in the workplace, whether sexually abusive behavior or even racially abusive behavior. We know that sometimes in certain parts of the industry, if you look a certain way, they treat you differently. And so when you encounter those types of behaviors, you're able to seek redress and talk about that. In seeking justice for harassment and abuse, often the greatest impediment is the time and expense associated with litigation. So litigation, being in court, lawsuit is expensive, and not just in terms of the dollars, court costs, attorney's fees, and the like, but also in terms of the time and your limitations on privacy. A plaintiff will have to sit through many meetings with counsel, going through just about everything in your life. And you spend time gathering documents in response to document requests. You also have to prepare for and sit through what's often an all-day deposition. And this is difficult if you have a day job, you got a family that needs you, that you're trying to support. And if you're between jobs, lawsuits can come up just by a simple Google search of your name, right? And weathering those challenges, as if those things weren't enough, sometimes the greatest challenge is finding another witness to back up your story. So a lot of times it starts with being able to, as I mentioned earlier, documenting and reporting the instances of abuse in the first place. I can't stress that enough. If you have documented who you spoke to, when you spoke to them, and what was said, everything that happened, who was present when whatever happened, all of those things are going to be important. Because not only are they important for you, such as, keeping a record for yourself, but it allows you, when there is an investigation conducted by the employer, you can point them in the direction of everybody who should have some knowledge about what went on because they were there. You also want to, because for instance, like I also do internal investigations for employers. It's very difficult when I have a complainant who is like, well, I don't remember this, I don't remember that. I want to be able to help, right? I want to get to the bottom of the situation. Having your documentation that you can share with me allows me to do a much more thorough investigation. So prevention is key. One, documentation is a way to do that. Also, working in numbers. Unions are hugely important. If you have a union for your professional classification, that is a good way to get representation and advocating for yourself. So you want to be sure that you're doing that and taking care of that for yourself. But again, as my colleague Rebecca also mentioned, I cannot stress enough documentation, because it's not only good for you, it's good for everyone involved to be sure that these types of things don't recur again in the future.
Wow. Listen, y'all, as attorney to attorney says, as sisters-in-law, y'all done got some free work today. Okay. You know how much you those words
Yeah,
of
because I'm
wisdom
not.
listen,
Because I'm a little expensive. I'm not gonna lie.
I can tell. You guys, if you want a consultation with her, again, this was for informational and educational purposes only, and entertainment purposes. You can contact her directly. How do they find you, sis, if they have employment issues that they want to address with you or have you review for potential legal action? I hear the theme: document, document, document. Hello.
Yes.
How do they find you, sis?
Sure. So my firm name is Walmec Legal, PLLC. I will put the name of the firm in the chat.
Oh, Natasha
As
got
well
you.
as,
I see it. Walmart.
yep. As well as
Fantastic.
my email address as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Great information. Incredible. We appreciate you. Thank you again to Shayla Walden for joining us today. Y'all, how you feel? Ooh, I feel full I feel like we have accomplished something together. I feel like a lot of great, reliable information has gone forth, and I'm going to bring back Miss Sabine to close us out and give final remarks. Make sure you follow all of our speakers, y'all. Follow, please. Sabine as well. I'm posting right now. I'm tagging right now myself. And I know you had to step away, my dear, but I just wanted to give you the final words before we close out.
Yes, yes. Okay. Thank you all for joining again. I am so pleased. This was a passion project of mine. I have been working on putting this vision together, and I'm so happy that it came together so beautifully. I did want to touch just briefly because I saw that there was some questions, baby. That's the balance, right? There was some questions and things that came in the chat. I'm just going to touch on them really briefly. Z Crew was one of the attendees, said, did therapy factor in your current mental state? It surely did. Sharing our stories is very healing. And so this is, again, why it was so important for me to have this event and to make sure that people are educated and empowered. So many times it was like an ongoing theme in this event that, you know, you have a choice. You have a choice. If something feels right, it doesn't feel right, speak up, inform yourselves. Don't go into entertainment or any spaces blindly. Do the research, look for the resources out there, and still follow your dreams. We want you to still follow your dreams, but do it safely and responsibly. So thank you all again for joining, and be on the lookout for the replay. It will be made available to you all.
All right, there we have it again. Let's hear it one more time. Sabine, congratulations on your first amazing virtual event. Again, thank you again to our co-sponsors, the content creator experience, as well as Black Moms Miami, as well as Co-Space Miami. I just finished tagging them. Everybody follow everybody. Try to remember each other's names, especially follow Sabine on all platforms. And again, we will look out for the replay. To everyone involved, we appreciate your time today. We hope we brought you some value, and we want you to stay with it. We are encouraging you to follow your dreams, and we appreciate you guys spending your Sunday afternoon with us. You can contact us on all social media. I'm Suzette Speaks. This has been Lights, Camera, Action for Change, a stand against abuse in the entertainment industry. Thank you. Love you guys. And again, thank you for having me. It has been my pleasure to be your host and MC. We will see you next time.